So when you read section 63 this week for Come Follow Me, as you get into it, you're going to find that some of you will feel like you're reading more from the Old Testament, where often people look at the Old Testament passages and see a God who is more filled with anger and wrath and justice and judgment and coming down, telling the people they're going to be destroyed because they're wicked. It's fascinating when you look at the various swings of a pendulum that goes back and forth at times, that you have these different attributes that get emphasized. Sometimes in scriptures we see the mercy, we see the love, we see the grace of God. And other times we see the justice, we see the judgment. You can see the problem that the prophets have to try to find this nice balance where they teach us the seriousness of sin, they cry repentance, and they teach God's justice when it's needed, but it's mixed in appropriately, as He would have us do, with His mercy, His love, feelings of His grace, which give us hope to say, yeah, I'm not perfect, but it's okay because I'm striving so to be. I'm trusting in God. So as we jump in, look at verse 1. Hearken, O ye people, and open your hearts, give ear from afar, and listen, you that call yourselves the people of the Lord, and hear the word of the Lord, and His will concerning you. Yea, verily I say, hear the word of Him whose anger is kindled against the wicked and rebellious. God doesn't want them thinking that He's not aware of what they're doing to break the covenants that they've made with Him and the commandments that He's given them. He's basically saying, I know exactly what you're doing, and I don't like it, because that's not leading the direction that you need to go.
And what's interesting, if we often hear the phrase, great are the words of Isaiah. If you turn to Isaiah chapter 1, this is what it says. Hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth, for the Lord has spoken. I have nourished and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me. So great are the words of Isaiah, and it's the same thing. God's like, I have done all this mercy, and unfortunately, because you guys have chosen to stand away from me, I need to talk about this to invite you back into my mercy. I want you to have my mercy, and you can only get it if you choose to stand with me. And if you're not standing with me, you may hear a louder voice asking you to come back, and He can't force us. Yeah. And we see something similar going on here in D&C.
This pattern shows up not just in Isaiah chapter 1, but in multiple Isaiah chapters. One of the classic examples of this is 1 Nephi 20, which happens to be the first time that Nephi introduces us to some of the words of Isaiah. So right out of the starting gate, look at what he says. The very first quote from Isaiah, that's a direct, where this whole chapter is from Isaiah 48, the first one given to us in our Book of Mormon. Listen to the first words. Hearken and hear this, O house of Jacob, who are called by the name of Israel, and are come forth out of the waters of Judah. And then the parenthetical statement, or out of the waters of baptism, that was added later for clarification. Now listen to this. Who swear by the name of the Lord, and make mention of the God of Israel, yet they swear not in truth, nor in righteousness. Nevertheless, they call themselves of the holy city, but they do not stay themselves upon the God of Israel, who is the Lord of hosts. Yea, the Lord of hosts is His name. It's exactly that. They're saying, I've been baptized, I'm a member of the church, I'm covenant Israel, but it's in name only. They've strayed from His righteousness, from all of His commandments. And so they've got the label, they've got the show, look at me, I'm a member of the church, or I'm a good Christian, but at the core, they've strayed.
It's interesting, he says they take this strength as because they believe that because they're part of the city of Jerusalem, that makes them safe. And he's like, just because you're inside the walls of Jerusalem does not mean you will not suffer the consequences of your choices. And also significant, he talks about swearing in the name of the Lord. The word swear in the past actually meant to make a covenant. We will hear here in Doctrine and Covenants 63, God talks about people who take his name in vain. They make empty promises. And it's all here. God says, if you're going to do something in my name, you have to live and stand where I expect you to stand. And if you don't, then I'm going to have to come out in judgment and invite you back in. So it's just interesting how all these themes just play out over and over in the scriptures. And it really comes down to God is all of this, and he wants us right there standing in the middle with him.
So it's interesting if you look at the concept that the infinite atonement of Jesus Christ is this steadying and balancing influence and power here, to the point where somebody who is struggling over in this moving away from God realm can have hope that there's a reason to come back into the safety of that covenant connection with Christ. But the reality is when people sin, as we're going to see later on in this section, it often affects a lot more than just them. It affects other people. And those other people need to know when they've been hurt by others' poor use of agency, that the atonement of Jesus Christ gives them just as much hope as the sinner. Everyone needs the infinite atonement equally, for different reasons perhaps, but we all desperately need the infinite atonement. So now you can start seeing this beautiful comparison that takes place all the time in General Conference, where they'll teach, the leaders of our church will teach the covenants and the commandments and the expectations, but they'll also give lots of hope, and they'll give lots of motivation for us to get up and move forward, whether we've sinned or been sinned against. All of us need this help to move forward.